should there be one regulatory body at the federal level that's setting the rules for both sides of the industry rather than pitting them against each other?
100% yes. This is where this conversation has been going. It's what the hemp industry has been asking for 6 years since the 2018 Farm Bill. We've expected a federal regulatory body like the FDA, but if not the FDA, then the TTB. Somewhere in the federal government bureaucracy, an agency to step forward and say these are our products that we have authority over, and we're going to regulate them. And for 6 years, we've been denied those regulations, and then now we're being criticized for existing in an unregulated industry. It really couldn't be more
Screwed up.
yeah, frustrating, and then also just a bad faith accusation on the other side. Like, we understand that we're unregulated.
Right.
Companies like companies could, in this unregulated environment, choose to do third-party lab tests, certified organic products, GMP manufacturing facilities, and also in this unregulated space, people can do the opposite and sell copyright infringement products marketed to teenagers because there's no regulations. And so
Right.
absolutely 100%, we need a federal regulatory scheme that captures federally legal cannabinoid products, starting with those products that are currently federally legal in the cannabinoid space, which would be hemp, into which future federally legal cannabinoid products would fall into. We in the hemp space feel like we're doing the hard work, helping to establish that federal regulatory scheme that will benefit cannabis industry in the long term, cannabis operators, cannabis consumers. And it's frustrating to be taking hits from the cannabis industry along with prohibitionists when cannabis industry actors are on the same side as Kevin Sabet and Smart Approaches to Marijuana and law enforcement organizations. They should take a step back and reflect on why that is.
Right. I agree. And I may have to edit out that man's name because of my personal abhorrence to the man. He's done no good to nobody as far as I can see, other than his own pockets. That's
Well, you and I are aligned on that. I have no tolerance for him either.
Oh man. Anyway, well, I'm glad that we're aligned on that there should be one federal government, the one federal agency. And let me ask you a question. If you had to pick between the FDA, the DEA, or the USAG, or we'll throw the Alcoholic Beverage Commission in there too. Thank you very much. Which of those entities do you think is most prepared and knowledgeable to either handle the added burden of regulating this industry, or again goes back to should there be one agency that's strictly for the cannabis plant and let that agency fight with the other agencies in Washington, D.C. for who gets to call the shots on the various things? I don't know.
It's a good question. It's a frustrating question because each of these entities that you mentioned are problematic or imperfect in their own right, and certainly criticism can be leveled against all of them. Valid criticism that would warrant concern that oversight by that particular entity would be bad. But let's take them one at a time. I mean, first of all, the DEA has been overseeing cannabis for the past 50 years. We know what a disaster that is. That's an easy one to say. That's a hard no.
How about the fact that recently, with the Fourth Circuit opinion, basically saying that the DEA's definition of hemp is wrong?
Yeah, it's not surprising. It's an ungoverned, like, it's one thing to have an ungovernable bureaucracy. The federal government's lousy with them, but an ungovernable bureaucracy with guns and power to kick in doors becomes very distressing. And it's clear from the DEA scandals that have come to light that it's due a house cleaning. And cannabis legalization and taking cannabis authority away from the DEA is a good start in defanging a police bureaucracy established by Richard Nixon that needs a house cleaning.
Yeah, and thank goodness he knew how to use a tape recorder.
So that's easy to dismiss.
Yeah.
Now, TTB, which is the inside of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. TTB regulates alcohol products at the federal level. I while there is some interest in the hemp space as TTB as an FDA alternative,
Mhm.
I do not hear from TTB actors, TTB players, TTB people at that agency that seem like there's any interest in that agency to regulate cannabis.
No, because they have to actually do research and do their jobs and actually learn about the product. And that's been the biggest snafu, I think, from the very beginning when the Farm Bill passed in 2018. It showed that our elected officials did not do their due diligence on this plant. And there was plenty of research in 2018 to learn about this plant. And they just said, you know what? We've got ourselves a legal crop. Let's help out the
To
farmers.
my knowledge, since the 2018 Farm Bill has passed, no one at TTB has expressed any interest in regulating this plant.
Right.
Now, so that and which and, so I mentioned TTB before FDA just to to suggest that despite the fact that FDA regulating the plant and cannabinoid products sounds like a nightmare for all the good reasons that people have for that, including there's a list. Um, there might not be any other choice. And um, in the hemp side, we've been frustrated by FDA for going on 6 years. Uh, we assumed after the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill that hemp CBD regulations as a dietary supplement would be immediately forthcoming. Like we would just get those. That was just a matter of course. It was legalized by Congress, so here we go. And of course, that never happened. And then earlier this year, January, feels like a long time ago, but January of this year, finally FDA came out and said they would not issue regulations for CBD under existing dietary supplement legislation, regulation, authority, even though they could. And they are asking for, in their words, a new regulatory pathway in order to regulate hemp products. We don't think they need that. But FDA has a desire to regulate all cannabis products, including botanical flower. It's been studying it for some time, even though it's not federally legal and even though it's not their purview. They have interest in doing so. And if they were to issue regulations for CBD products under existing regulations, it would eliminate their leverage to getting what they want, which is regulatory authority over cannabis. And the way they want to do that is through a new center for cannabinoid currently envisioned as a new center for cannabis products. I believe the Senate bill, the
CAOA. Yep.
envisions an FDA Center for Cannabis Products, um, which is challenging from a conceptual level, especially given the disaster FDA's Center for Tobacco Products has been relative to vaping and on down the line. The idea of giving FDA another center for authority is difficult to swallow. And given the fact that FDA uses its user fee business model to cozy up to the pharmaceutical companies that it's supposed to be regulating on the other side of its mandate, also makes it challenging as a small business to grant authority or to want to grant authority to FDA for this matter. And given all that concern, there doesn't seem to be any other way.
Mm.
And what the hemp experiment should be showing the cannabis industry is that legalization through Congress is only half the battle, as difficult as that battle is. On the other side of it, regulation is required in order to fully realize the mainstreaming of the cannabis plant into American society. We need federal regulations.
Right.
And if FDA and a new center under FDA is the only way to go about that, then we should all get aligned into crafting legislatively what that center looks like so that it protects small businesses, it protects minority companies, it protects the good parts of the existing structure of the cannabis industry in America today, while helping us alleviate some of the bullshit bad parts, and creating a better, more mainstreamed industry that still protects consumers and still prevents underage use.
Yeah.
And And that's the challenge that the hemp industry is engaged on now.
Yep.
And we could really use the cannabis industry's support and help, because getting this over the finish line for hemp now will benefit the cannabis industry tomorrow.
Yeah. I have a theory about conspiracy, and I'm going to share it with you, that I really believe since the government has screwed up this plant since the 1910s, if you will, when they started to ban it without really understanding that they were banning a medicine. And they acquiesced to the industrial giants of that time and allowed it to become a political tool, even back in the 1930s. And here it is again in the 21st century. It's continuing to be a political tool. My feeling is that the government was scared about the green rush. And they said, how are we ever going to control this? And we have to do everything we possibly can to make it as difficult as possible for both sides of this industry. We'll put them against each other to survive.
It doesn't take a conspiracy to understand why the cannabis industry decided to attack the hemp industry. Like I have a lot of good people in the cannabis industry, but bless everyone's hearts, they don't understand policy or how legislation gets made very well. And their cannabis operators, anonymous cannabis MSO investors on the platform formerly known as Twitter, just shitting on Democrats for not getting safe banking passed when Democrats are there, but we need Republican votes to get to 60, is very frustrating. It's very frustrating because you don't attack and shit on your allies who are trying to help you. It makes them less likely and less willing to help you in the future. You thank them repeatedly. You thank them over and over again. And if you're frustrated, you thank them again, and then you go get a Republican to vote yes.
Yeah. It's been a mess. And everybody digs their heels in when it comes to that sort of thing, and pointing fingers and labeling and profiling. It hasn't helped anything. Forget the cannabis space, the whole government right now. It seems every few months, Jim, they have to have a vote to keep it going.
I'm not here to talk about the whole government. I have a very narrow focus, and my focus is being a productive member of the hemp and cannabis industry to get legislation done.
Yeah. Will it happen? Will it happen, Jim? Or do we need
if we all get together and push with in the same direction, we can get it done. But if we keep fighting each other, we're going to keep fucking this up.
Right.
And like from the beginning, the cannabis industry as a whole, writ large, including myself, like we are the island of misfit toys. We are all together on this one topic because of how we have come to cannabis, all for our own unique reasons, and all because in many ways we didn't fit into mainstream society to begin with. We are all a bunch of like an eclectic bunch of individuals to start with, and that's our strength. It's also our weakness, and we need to learn how to agree with each other and move forward together in the same direction. And God love us, it has not been our strength.
No. And it's funny, we've talked now for about 15, 20 minutes, and we haven't talked about the state of Texas, which to me is probably the prime example of the, what did you call it? The misfit group. I mean, they can't get it right. Now they have cities and towns, including cities the size of Dallas, on the ballot question to decriminalize the plant. And yet they still continue to sell it as a hemp product in Texas. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to me what's going on in Texas.
Well, and I mean, I started this conversation saying I was only going to be talking about one thing, but now you've baited me into talking about Texas. So here we go.
Yeah. Wait, I didn't bait you. I asked you.
Wow.
I'm on your side as far as I want you to tell your story, Jim. Let it out, man. Let it out. Go ahead.
My good friends in Texas.
Yes.
First of all, Texas is currently, holds the notoriety of being the largest prohibition state left in America.
Mm-hmm.
Texas is organized as a state in a unique way because it's Texas, and by which I mean uh, it's very decentralized and lots of power left to counties outside the state. So while so it's an ultimate urban-rural divide situation where you've got these giant metropolises. I mean, set Dallas aside, which is giant, but Houston is the fourth largest city in America. Um, and that doesn't account for San Antonio and Austin and down the list, like
Right.
giant metropolitan areas in Texas. But those counties have, sort of autonomy outside of state government to do their own thing in certain regards. And so therefore these, decriminalization votes that are happening in places like Dallas. And, Colin Allred, who is a congressman representing Dallas, now challenging Ted Cruz for Senate in Texas, would be a great step forward in getting Texas more unified with the country, with the rest of the 49 of us. Um, but it's frustrating. But Texas is a great example of the hemp industry doing pretty well. I mean, it has its own hemp ecosystem. There's brands in Texas that only exist in Texas, and they seem to be doing pretty well for one state brands. So Texas is, figuring it out, but much like Georgia, and Kentucky for that matter, with urban rural divide states where you have one metropolitan area, or in Texas's case, multiple metropolitan areas, um, and then a state government that is outside of those metropolitan areas. The state government tends to whipsaw reaction to what's happening in the cities just because they don't like what's going on in the cities. And so that entrenches the prohibition efforts in those states because the cities are moving forward without them.
Right.
We've got that some here in Louisville and Kentucky, and in Atlanta versus the state of Georgia is another great example
Yep.
of
Did you
what
happen to
holds
see?
back progress in that regard.
Did you happen to see the news item about the pharmacy in Texas that is starting to give out, or not give out, but take in prescriptions for cannabis, and in denial of the DEA's cease and desist rule about a year ago?
That's Georgia, right?
Georgia, yeah, that was in Georgia.
I saw, I don't know the specifics of that. I did see the headline, and um, that is a new good fight. It's a new good fight to have. It's
It's
but as we've seen, we can't really trust the courts
no,
to solve these problems for us. We need legislation.
right,
So
which puts it back on Congress again.
puts it back on Congress again, puts it back on us in the hemp industry and constructive members of the cannabis industry to work together to get something done in Congress. Because what we've learned from safer banking is you have to count to 60. We need 60 votes in the Senate to get it done. That is the simple math. No matter everything else, nothing else matters. We have to count to 60. And if we can't get to 60, then we can't get it done. We either need Republicans to change their opinion from no to yes, or we need to replace those Republicans with other Republicans or Democrats that will vote yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the challenge ahead. And
Yeah.
if we in Colin Allred seems to be nipping at the heels of Ted Cruz, that's a vote from no to yes. And so, and people in the cannabis industry, Republicans in the cannabis industry, need to understand that Colin Allred race for Texas Senate could get us safe banking. It could get us safe banking. It's a no to a yes.
I'll never forget Michael Correa, who used to be the Director of Government Relations for the NCIA in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
We used to interview him on a regular basis. And I remember him saying, well, safe banking's low-hanging fruit. We want to get that across the finish line. And that was, God, it had to be it had to be 5, 6 years ago. And I mean, it's incredible to me
Well,
that it has gone nowhere.
here's the politics on safe banking. It would be low-hanging fruit if we restricted it simply to the mechanisms of banking. But Democrats who have been carrying this ball for decades, including new Democrats like Senator Warnock from Georgia, and for that matter, also Cory Booker from New Jersey, refuse to support a bill that's simply a banking bill. Like, the damage done by prohibition to
Right.
communities of color is a real thing and must be addressed, and the stakeholders who are pushing banking forward demand it be addressed.
Mhm.
And then now Republicans get all wobbly. Well, I'm for this banking thing, but I can't vote for anything that's going to vaguely support some minor consideration that our entire drug war premise of the past 50 years has demoralized whole communities, and that needs to be addressed. And then they start to walk away from it and start blaming other people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Blame is not good.
we have to get this across the finish line together, and part of that is understanding that there's damages caused by the drug war to communities of color,
Yep.
and we have to address those in policy as it moves forward. And for Republicans to walk away from safer banking after having already co-sponsored safe banking for this reason is, another challenge. Like, we have to solve that problem, and that problem is either solved by getting those Republicans comfortable with voting for repairing the damage caused by the drug war, or replace them with people who will vote for it.
Yeah. Well, it's the system that we have. I'm not a big fan of the two-party system. I think that, but I'm one of those left-wing radical Massachusetts liberals, and I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. I'm just not. I'm just not. And don't put me in a group with everybody else either, because I can be convinced either way. What I'm upset about, as usual, is we can't find common sense approach to this one plant. And it's been screwed up, not just in 2018, but it's been screwed up for decades. And now I love the fact that the news item last week about Nixon's tapes basically saying, yeah, we knew it was harmless all along, but we needed to ban it because of the depth of racism in this country and how cannabis has been used as a tool to fill our prisons. It is one of the more embarrassing things that I've uncovered and learned over the last 6 years of being in this chair and talking to people. It
That's
really is.
100% correct. I mean, like it's a sad fact,
Yep.
but it's a true fact.
Right.
The war on drugs was a
Failed.
war on people, a war on community,
Failed.
and its entire purpose was population control.
Right.
And we are unwinding it, but we can't unwind it in ignorance of the damage that it's caused. We have to unwind it in recognition of the damage that it's caused.
Yeah, there really should be one step first, and I'm not a simple step that here's the thing, both sides agree this has to be an adult 21 product. Both sides agree that it should be tested and regulated. So far, so good, right, Jim? I mean, am I wrong
with
here?
you.
Okay. But how it gets there goes back to they just don't understand how the plant works. And what they should learn is humans, our family, one family of humanity here, are always looking for ways to cut corners and to make it easier to get around the laws. And don't forget, this is a plant that has been used illegally for hundreds of years, 100 years anyway, in this country since it was banned. And I mean, the people in the industry are used to breaking the law because they've been doing it for a long time. And again, it's federally illegal. You can't deny the fact that it's still federally illegal. I'm of the opinion that the whole Controlled Substances Act needs to be blown up because of the knowledge that we now have about some of the pills that have permeated our society and killed children. And I'm talking about opioids. It's horrible what's happening. Mm-hmm. It's horrible. So anyway, we're not gonna solve everything today, Jim. But man, do I like talking to a like-minded individual like you who's in the industry. And by the way, I'd be remiss if I did not ask, how is Cornbread Hemp doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for asking. I mean, we just released the first ever USDA certified organic THC gummy.
Yep.
And the response to that has been overwhelmingly positive. You
can't light the gummy to turn it into THCA, right? It can't be inflamed. It's a gummy, correct?
It's a gummy. There's organic Delta 9 THC in it. There's no I haven't seen I don't have the lab report in front of me. There may be some minor traces of THCA. I was going to say there's no THCA in it, but there might be some minors in there as well. But it is a certified organic 1-to-1 THC gummy, 10 milligrams of CBD, 10 milligrams of THC per gummy. Every input in that process is certified organic. We do our extraction with organic ethanol, and everything about the process is organic.
Fantastic. Well, congrats on that, and I wish you the best of luck on that.